December 15th started like any other Tuesday until I received a text message that would change everything between my brother and me forever. Marcus had sent a message to our family group chat that made my blood run cold. He wrote that Christmas this year was only for family members who had their lives together, and there was no place for losers who could not even find a husband at 32 years old. The words stung deeper than any physical blow ever could. Little did he know I had been the one keeping his family afloat all along. Before I share what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching from. Please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about family drama and personal growth. Trust me, this story gets wild. To understand the full impact of Marcus's cruel words, you need to know the foundation of our relationship and how I had been secretly supporting his family for years. My name is Nadia, and at 32, I work as a software engineer, earning $95,000 annually. Marcus is my older brother at 34, and we used to be incredibly close growing up in suburban Ohio. Our parents died in a devastating car accident in 2018, leaving Marcus and me as the only immediate family we had left. The loss brought us closer initially, and we promised each other we would always be there for one another. Marcus married his college sweetheart, Sarah, and they have 2 beautiful children together, Emma, who is 8 years old, and Jake, who is 6. I absolutely adored my nephew and niece, often spoiling them with gifts and spending quality time together during family gatherings. Marcus works at a mid-sized insurance company where he handles claims processing, earning about $45,000 per year. Sarah teaches at a local preschool, bringing in approximately $28,000 annually. While their combined income might seem reasonable, they struggled financially due to several factors that put constant pressure on their household budget. They had purchased a modest 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood for $280,000, leaving them with a substantial mortgage payment that consumed nearly 40% of their monthly income. Between the mortgage property taxes, homeowner insurance, and basic utilities, their housing costs alone were overwhelming. Add to that the expenses of raising 2 young children, including childcare, medical insurance, clothing, food, and countless other necessities, and their budget was stretched impossibly thin. I first became aware of their financial struggles in October of 2021, when Marcus called me late one evening, his voice breaking with desperation and shame. He explained that they were 3 months behind on their mortgage payments and faced the terrifying possibility of foreclosure. The stress was destroying his marriage, and he feared losing everything they had worked so hard to build together. Without hesitation, I transferred $2,000 to his account that very night, telling him to consider it a gift rather than a loan. Marcus was overwhelmed with gratitude, promising he would pay me back as soon as possible. However, I knew from his financial situation that repayment was unlikely, and honestly, I did not expect or want him to worry about paying me back when his family needed stability more than anything else. What started as a one-time emergency assistance gradually evolved into regular monthly support that Marcus had no idea was coming from me. I began transferring $800 every month to help with their daily living expenses, disguising the payments as automatic deposits that Sarah might assume came from work bonuses or other sources. Additionally, I set up a separate savings account specifically dedicated to covering Emma and Jake's educational expenses, contributing $500 monthly toward their school supplies, extracurricular activities, and future college funds. Whenever genuine emergencies arose, such as car repairs, medical bills, or unexpected household expenses, I would quietly transfer additional funds ranging from $500 to $1,200. Marcus always assumed these mysterious financial windfalls came from Sarah's occasional tutoring work or small bonuses from her teaching position. Sarah, meanwhile, trusted that Marcus was managing their finances responsibly and had somehow secured additional income streams she was not fully aware of. Over the course of 3 years, this arrangement worked smoothly. Marcus and Sarah's marriage stabilized, the children thrived in their activities, and the family could afford small luxuries like occasional family dinners at restaurants or weekend trips to nearby attractions. I felt tremendous satisfaction knowing I could provide this security for the family I loved, especially after losing our parents, and understanding how precious family connections truly are. However, everything began to shift dramatically in August of 2024, when Marcus received a promotion at his insurance company. He was elevated to a supervisor position, which came with additional responsibilities and a modest salary increase of approximately $8,000 annually. While this was positive news financially, the promotion seemed to trigger an unexpected change in Marcus's personality and attitude toward me that I found both confusing and hurtful. The transformation in Marcus's behavior following his promotion was gradual but unmistakable, creating an increasingly uncomfortable dynamic between us that I struggled to understand or address effectively. What had once been a warm, supportive sibling relationship slowly morphed into something that felt judgmental and condescending, leaving me questioning what I had done wrong to deserve such treatment from my only remaining family member. Marcus began making subtle but cutting comments about my single status, often disguised as concerned brotherly advice, but delivered with an undertone of superiority that stung deeply. During family phone calls, he would ask if I was still dating anyone, and when I mentioned that I was focusing on my career and personal growth, he would respond with remarks like, "You know, Nadia, success is not just about professional achievements. Real fulfillment comes from building a family and creating a legacy that goes beyond work." These conversations became increasingly frequent and more pointed as the months progressed. Marcus would compare me unfavorably to his married colleagues, mentioning how his co-worker Jennifer had just celebrated her 5th wedding anniversary, or how his friend Dave was coaching his son's little league team. The implication was always clear. I was somehow falling short of what constituted a meaningful, successful life, because I had not yet found a husband and started a family of my own. The irony was particularly painful because I knew that while he was lecturing me about success and fulfillment, I was still quietly funding a significant portion of his family's lifestyle. Every month, I continued transferring the $800 for their living expenses, the $500 for the children's activities and education, and whatever emergency funds were needed for unexpected costs. My bank statements showed a clear pattern of sacrificing my own financial goals to ensure his family's stability and comfort. In November of 2024, Marcus called me during one of his particularly stressful workdays to complain about the pressures of his new supervisory role. He spent 30 minutes detailing the challenges of managing a team, the increased expectations from upper management, and the complexity of his new responsibilities. I listened supportively, offering encouragement and practical suggestions based on my own professional experience in leadership roles. However, toward the end of our conversation, Marcus made a comment that should have served as a warning sign for what was coming. He said, "You know, Nadia, now that I am finally achieving real success in my career, I can see how different our paths have become." I have responsibilities, a family to provide for, and real-world pressures that people who just focus on their careers all day cannot really understand. It is a completely different level of maturity and accomplishment. I felt a sharp pang of hurt and confusion at his words, but I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps the stress of his new position was making him speak more harshly than he intended. Maybe he was simply trying to process his own feelings about increased responsibility, and it was coming out in ways that inadvertently diminished my own life choices and achievements. I decided to continue supporting his family financially, while hoping that his attitude would improve once he adjusted to his new role. Unfortunately, Marcus's behavior only became more problematic as December approached. During our Thanksgiving phone call, he spent considerable time talking about his family's plans for Christmas, describing the elaborate gifts they were planning to buy for the children and the special holiday traditions they wanted to establish. He mentioned that Sarah's parents would be joining them for Christmas dinner, creating what he called a real family celebration with people who understand what truly matters in life. Then came December 15th, the day that would forever change our relationship. I was working late at my home office when my phone buzzed with a notification from our family group chat. The group included Marcus, Sarah, myself, and Sarah's parents, who had been added when they became grandparents to Emma and Jake. We typically use this chat to coordinate family gatherings, share photos of the children, and stay connected on important family news. Marcus had sent a message that read, "Christmas this year is for family who have their lives together. No place for losers who cannot even find a husband at 32. The message appeared in the group chat where Sarah's parents could see it, along with Sarah herself, making the public humiliation even more devastating than if he had spoken to me privately. I sat staring at my phone screen, reading the message 3 times to make sure I had not misunderstood his words. The cruelty was breathtaking, especially coming from someone whose family I had been quietly supporting for years. Sarah's parents, whom I had always respected and who had treated me kindly, were witnessing my brother publicly calling me a loser for being unmarried at 32 years old. Rather than responding emotionally or defensively in the group chat, I took several deep breaths and decided to respond with the kind of calm dignity that the situation required. After thinking carefully about my words, I typed back, "I understand. Have a wonderful Christmas with your family." Then I closed my phone and sat in the quiet of my apartment, processing the full implications of what had just occurred and what I needed to do in response. The next 24 hours marked a turning point that would reshape not only my relationship with Marcus, but also my understanding of family loyalty, financial boundaries, and self-respect. As I sat in my apartment on the evening of December 15th, I found myself reviewing bank statements from the past 3 years with a clarity that had been absent before Marcus's cruel text message. The numbers were staggering when I calculated the total amount I had quietly transferred to support his family's lifestyle. $800 monthly for living expenses multiplied by 36 months equaled $28,800. The $500 monthly for educational expenses totaled $18,000 over the same period. Emergency transfers for car repairs, medical bills, and other unexpected costs added another $40,600 to the total. I had given Marcus's family $87,400 over 3 years' money that represented sacrifices I had made in my own life without ever mentioning them to anyone. I had postponed buying a house because the down payment fund kept getting redirected to Marcus's emergencies. I had skipped vacations, driven my old car longer than I should have, and lived more frugally than my income required, all to ensure that Emma and Jake could participate in activities and that their family could maintain middle-class stability. The realization that I had been funding the very lifestyle that Marcus now used as evidence of his superior success was both heartbreaking and infuriating. His ability to take his wife and children out for dinner, to buy them nice Christmas presents, and to maintain their house had been directly subsidized by the sister he now publicly dismissed as a loser. The injustice was so profound that it took my breath away. On December 16th, I made a series of calculated decisions that would force Marcus to confront the reality of his financial situation without my invisible support. I called my bank and canceled the automatic monthly transfer of $800 that had been scheduled for the 20th of each month. I also closed the special savings account I had established for Emma and Jake's educational expenses, transferring the remaining balance back to my primary checking account. Most significantly, I reviewed my recent text messages with Marcus and found multiple instances where he had casually mentioned needing help with various expenses, always presenting these requests as temporary emergencies that he would handle if I could just assist briefly. I realized that what I had perceived as occasional emergency help had actually become a systematic expectation that my financial support would always be available whenever his family needed anything beyond their regular income. I decided not to inform Marcus about these changes immediately. Instead, I wanted to see how long it would take for him to notice that the mysterious financial support his family had been receiving was no longer appearing in their accounts. I was curious whether he would connect the timing of these changes with his cruel Christmas message, or if he would simply assume that whatever source had been providing their extra money had naturally dried up for unrelated reasons. Christmas Day came and went without any contact between Marcus and me. I spent the holiday quietly in my apartment, cooking a nice meal for myself, and video calling with college friends who lived in other cities. Sarah posted pictures on social media showing their family Christmas morning with Emma and Jake opening presents under a beautifully decorated tree. The gifts appeared expensive and numerous, funded by money that Marcus still did not realize had been coming from me all along. However, by December 28th, Marcus's financial reality began to assert itself in ways he could not ignore or explain away. He called me multiple times throughout the day, his voice increasingly frantic as he tried to understand why their usual end-of-month financial cushion had not appeared as expected. Sarah had told him there was no extra money in their account for the first time in years, and they were facing immediate bills for utilities, groceries, and other necessities that they had become accustomed to covering with their mysterious additional income. When I finally answered his fifth call that evening, Marcus was almost breathless with panic. He explained that they needed $1,200 immediately to cover their electric bill, gas bill, and grocery expenses for the week. Their mortgage payment was due in 3 days, and their regular paychecks would not be deposited until after the 1st of January due to holiday banking schedules. I listened to his explanation with a calmness that surprised even me. When he finished outlining their crisis, I responded simply, "I am sure you will figure it out, Marcus. You are so successful now." The words carried all the weight of his Christmas message, delivered with the same matter-of-fact tone he had used to dismiss me from their family celebration. Marcus was silent for several seconds before asking, "What is that supposed to mean, Nadia?" His voice carried a note of genuine confusion, as if he could not understand why I might be responding to his emergency with anything other than immediate financial assistance. I took a deep breath and replied, "It means exactly what you said in your message. Christmas is for people who have their lives together. You clearly have your life together, so I am confident you can handle this situation without any help from a loser who cannot even find a husband. Then I hung up the phone and turned off the ringer. Over the following weeks, Marcus's financial crisis deepened in ways that revealed the extent to which my support had been propping up their entire lifestyle. By mid-January, they were 3 weeks behind on their mortgage payment and had received a formal notice from their lender warning of potential foreclosure proceedings if the payments were not brought current immediately. Sarah, who had been living under the assumption that their family's financial stability was secure, began asking Marcus increasingly pointed questions about where their extra money had been coming from for the past 3 years. She had always trusted his explanations about work bonuses and side income, but the complete disappearance of these funds forced her to demand concrete proof of these income sources. Under pressure from Sarah's questioning and their mounting bills, Marcus was finally forced to admit that he had been receiving regular financial assistance from me without Sarah's knowledge. The revelation that their comfortable lifestyle had been funded by his sister, whom he had just publicly humiliated and excluded from their Christmas celebration, created a crisis in their marriage that went far beyond their immediate financial problems. Sarah was devastated to learn that Marcus had been lying to her for years about their true financial situation and the source of their additional income. She felt betrayed by his deception and horrified by his treatment of me, especially after discovering the enormous sacrifices I had been making to ensure their family's stability. The combination of financial stress and marital conflict created chaos in their household that affected every aspect of their daily lives. Emma and Jake had to be withdrawn from their private school and enrolled in the local public elementary school because Marcus and Sarah could no longer afford the tuition payments. Their after-school activities, music lessons, and sports teams all had to be canceled due to the fees involved. The children struggled to understand why their lives were changing so dramatically, creating additional stress for parents who were already overwhelmed by their circumstances. Marcus began calling me 15 to 20 times per day, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails, begging me to reconsider my decision and resume financial support for his family. His messages ranged from angry accusations that I was punishing innocent children for his mistakes to tearful pleas for forgiveness and understanding. I listened to each voicemail, but did not respond to any of them maintaining the boundary I had established after his Christmas message. 3 weeks after Marcus's first panicked phone call, he appeared at my apartment door unannounced on a Saturday morning in late January. I could see through the peephole that he looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and clothes that suggested he had been sleeping poorly. Despite my anger and hurt, I could not ignore the fact that this was still my brother, and his obvious distress stirred feelings of concern that I had been trying to suppress. I opened the door and invited him inside, offering coffee and maintaining the polite but distant tone I had adopted since his Christmas message. Marcus sat heavily in my living room chair, looking around at my apartment as if seeing it clearly for the first time. Perhaps he was finally noticing the modest furniture and simple decorations that reflected my choice to live below my means in order to support his family's more comfortable lifestyle. Marcus began with a long, tearful apology that acknowledged the cruelty of his Christmas message and the unfairness of excluding me from their family celebration. He admitted that his promotion had made him feel more successful and important than he actually was, leading him to judge others, especially me, by superficial standards that did not reflect their true worth or contributions. He expressed deep regret for hurting me and for taking my financial support for granted, without ever acknowledging or appreciating the sacrifices I was making. However, beneath his apology, I could hear the underlying assumption that this conversation would naturally lead to my resuming financial support for his family. Marcus seemed to believe that once he had properly apologized and acknowledged his mistakes, our relationship would return to its previous dynamic, where I quietly subsidized their lifestyle without recognition or appreciation. I listened to his entire apology without interrupting, then responded with a calmness that clearly surprised him. Marcus, I accept your apology, and I forgive you for the hurtful things you said. However, I will not be your ATM anymore. You are 44 years old with a wife and 2 children, and it is time for your family to live within your actual means rather than depending on my financial support. The conversation that followed was perhaps the most honest discussion Marcus and I had ever had about money, family obligations, and mutual respect. I explained that my financial support had inadvertently enabled him to avoid facing the reality of his family's financial situation and had prevented him from developing the skills and habits necessary for true financial independence. Marcus broke down completely sobbing as he told me, "Nadia, you are the only family I have left after Mom and Dad died. I cannot lose you too." His words touched something deep in my heart, reminding me of the grief we had shared and the promise we had made to always be there for each other after our parents' tragic accident. I reached across and took his hand, speaking gently but firmly. "Marcus, you are not going to lose me as your sister, but you did lose me as your personal bank. If you want our relationship to continue, it needs to be built on mutual respect and honest communication, not financial dependency disguised as family obligation." Over the following months, Marcus and Sarah began the difficult process of rebuilding their marriage and their financial foundation without external support. They started attending marriage counseling to address the trust issues created by Marcus's years of deception about their finances. Sarah took on additional tutoring work in the evenings to supplement their income, while Marcus began working part-time weekend hours at a retail store to bring in extra money. The children adapted to their new circumstances better than their parents had expected. Emma discovered that she enjoyed public school more than her previous private school, making new friends and participating in different activities that were available through the school district. Jake thrived in the after-school program at their local community center, which cost significantly less than the private programs he had attended previously. Most importantly, Marcus began writing me letters every week, not asking for money or making demands, but simply sharing what was happening in his life and expressing his ongoing commitment to rebuilding our relationship on healthier terms. These letters showed a level of thoughtfulness and emotional maturity that had been missing from our interactions for years, suggesting that the crisis had forced him to grow in ways that my financial support had inadvertently prevented. By November of 2025, I felt ready to take a step toward rebuilding our family connection in a way that honored both my boundaries and our shared history. I invited Marcus, Sarah, and the children to my apartment for Christmas dinner, making it clear that this was about spending time together as family rather than resuming any financial support. The Christmas dinner I hosted in 2025 was unlike any family gathering we had shared in years, marked by an atmosphere of genuine appreciation, honest communication, and mutual respect that had been absent during the years when my financial support had created an unspoken imbalance in our relationship. Marcus and Sarah arrived with their children, carrying small handmade gifts that Emma and Jake had created in their art classes at school. Emma had painted a beautiful picture of our family, including our deceased parents, which brought tears to my eyes when I unwrapped it. Jake had made a clay mug in his after-school program, explaining proudly that he had painted it blue because that was my favorite color, and he wanted me to think of him every time I drank my morning coffee. The dinner conversation was relaxed and natural, focusing on the children's achievements in their new schools, Sarah's success with her tutoring business, and Marcus's growing confidence in his supervisor role at work. Nobody mentioned money, financial stress, or past difficulties. Instead, we talked about books we were reading, movies we had enjoyed, and plans for simple family activities that did not require significant financial investment. Sarah took a moment during dinner to thank me directly for the difficult decision I had made to stop enabling their financial dependence. She explained that while the transition had been extremely challenging, it had forced both her and Marcus to take full responsibility for their family's financial stability in ways that had ultimately strengthened their marriage and their confidence as parents. Marcus added his own reflection, acknowledging that my financial support, while generous and well-intended, had prevented him from fully growing into the role of family provider that he needed to embrace. He said that learning to live within their actual means had been humbling, but ultimately empowering, giving him a sense of genuine accomplishment and self-respect that he had not experienced when their lifestyle was subsidized by my contributions. After dinner, while the children played board games in the living room, Marcus and I had a private conversation in my kitchen as we cleaned dishes together. He told me that he had started therapy to address his issues with pride and his tendency to measure his worth through external validation rather than internal growth and character development. Marcus shared that his therapist had helped him understand how his cruel Christmas message had been motivated by his own insecurity about accepting financial help from his younger sister, even though he had not consciously acknowledged the source of their additional income. On some level, he had always suspected that their financial stability was too good to be true based on their actual earnings, but he had chosen not to investigate too deeply because he was afraid of what he might discover. The most meaningful part of our conversation came when Marcus told me that he had established a small savings account with the goal of eventually repaying some portion of the money I had given his family over the years. I immediately told him that repayment was neither expected nor wanted, but he insisted that taking responsibility for their past financial dependence was important for his own sense of integrity and self-respect. As the evening wound down and they prepared to leave, both Emma and Jake hugged me tightly, telling me how much they had missed spending time with me during the months when our family had been divided. Their innocent affection reminded me that children should never be held responsible for the conflicts and misunderstandings that occur between adults, and I felt grateful that we had found a way to rebuild our family connection without allowing past hurt to permanently damage these precious relationships. Sarah whispered to me, as they were gathering their coats, that she had never seen Marcus as motivated and focused as he had become since learning to take full responsibility for their family's financial welfare. She said that while she would never want to repeat the stress and uncertainty of the past year, she was grateful for the personal growth that had resulted from facing their challenges without external financial support. After they left that evening, I spent time reflecting on the journey that had brought our family to this point of healing and renewed connection. I realized that my decision to stop enabling Marcus's financial dependence had been one of the most loving actions I could have taken, even though it had felt harsh and potentially damaging at the time I made it. The experience taught me that real love sometimes requires allowing people we care about to face the consequences of their choices and develop their own strength and resilience. My years of financial support, while motivated by genuine care and concern, had inadvertently prevented Marcus from developing the skills and confidence he needed to truly provide for his family and feel proud of his accomplishments. I also learned the importance of setting clear boundaries in relationships, even with family members we love deeply. Allowing Marcus to take my financial support for granted while treating me with disrespect had created an unhealthy dynamic that was ultimately damaging to both of us. Learning to say no and maintain my own self-respect had been essential for creating the possibility of a genuine, balanced relationship based on mutual appreciation rather than financial obligation. Most importantly, I discovered that family love does not require sacrificing your own well-being or enabling others' irresponsible behavior. True family support sometimes means stepping back and allowing people to develop their own strength and capabilities, even when watching them struggle is difficult and painful. Today, our relationship is stronger because it is built on mutual respect, honest communication, and genuine appreciation rather than financial dependency and unspoken resentment. Marcus and Sarah have created a stable, happy life within their actual means, and their children are thriving in an environment where their parents feel confident and self-sufficient. Sometimes the word no is the most loving thing you can say to someone you care about, and the most difficult decisions can lead to the most meaningful growth and healing. Have you ever had to make a tough choice between helping someone you love and protecting your own well-being? I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Please like this video if my story resonated with you. Subscribe for more real-life stories about family challenges and personal growth, and share this with anyone who might benefit from hearing about the importance of healthy boundaries in relationships. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it brings you courage and wisdom in your own difficult family situations. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is allow people to discover their own strength.